Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and tonight I'm doing a review of the Schiit Loki. This is a 4-band equalizer, and I think the first thing we need to talk about is, should a audiophile use an equalizer? I guess this is pretty much divided right down the middle. There's two different thoughts on this. Many would say that no, a true audiophile would only listen to music as flat as possible and not use an EQ. The idea behind that is that we should try to hear the music as the artist intended, exactly the way it was recorded, and not mess with it. But the argument on the other side, and the way I feel about this, is that in order to hear the music exactly as the artist intended, wouldn't we have to use the exact same equipment that the recording artist used? Wouldn't we have to use the same studio monitors or same headphones, the same amp? Wouldn't our equipment have to be identical if we were going to hear it exactly as they intended in the first place? Also, wouldn't we have to listen to it at the same volume? Because it's a well-known fact that at lower volumes, our ears, the human ears, are less sensitive to bass and treble than they are the mid-range. And that's why way back in the 60s or 70s, whenever it was, they invented the loudness button, which was meant to compensate by boosting the bass and treble at low volumes to compensate for human hearing. But of course most people just left the loudness button on all the time, even when they had the volume up. But anyway, so my feeling is that if we're not using the same equipment, we're not listening at the same volume, then what's the harm in using a little bit of EQ? I realize that, giving a huge bass boost or something like that is going to drastically change the sound of the music. Too much bass is going to overwhelm the mid-range, and that's, obviously not what an audiophile would want. But in my opinion, if your speakers or your headphones, are lacking in one frequency or another, I mean, look at how many headphones, popular headphones, are considered ideal except for a small lack somewhere. I mean, look at the Sennheiser HD800, one of the most popular audiophile headphones there is, but some people think that they lack bass or don't have enough bass impact. Your headphone might be lacking in the mid-range, it might be lacking in the treble. So I don't really see a problem with doing small tweaks to adjust your headphone to the way you want to hear it, and save owning multiple headphones and switching back and forth every time you switch the music you're listening to. Or, that's another topic, the music. Not every recording is perfect. It may be as the artist intended, but it might not be what you really like. I mean, my headphones, my primary headphone is a Hi-Fi Man HE560, and really good recordings don't need any EQ at all. They sound perfect the way they are, but not all recordings are perfect, and I like to give maybe 2 or 3 decibels of bass boost on some albums. It just makes them sound better to me. It just gives it more life, a little more bass impact. So or another issue is when you get to be my age. I'm 54 years old and my ears aren't as good as they were when I was young, and sometimes I like to boost the treble a couple decibels. 2 or 3 decibels can compensate for hearing loss on us old people. So anyway, but back to the Schiit Loki itself. First I want to show you what it looks like. Most of you have probably seen it, or at least seen pictures of it. It's a 4-band EQ. It has adjustments at 20 Hertz, 400 Hertz, 2000 hertz and 8000 hertz. It also, on the front here, has a bypass switch. With just a flip of the switch, you can eliminate the EQ altogether and put it right back to flat. I'm personally running this in between, I'm using a Benchmark DAC 1 as my DAC, and I've got this in between that and Emotiva A100 Bass X amp, and it works ideal. That's the only drawback to this, is it has to be in front of your amp. If you have a combination DAC amp, there's no real way to use it. Anyway, the hookups on the back, you can see the plug here where you plug in the power supply. You've got an on-off switch here on the back, and you've got your input and your output. Anyway, one of the big disadvantages of EQ in the past was it added distortion to the music. That's probably more than anything else the reason why audiophiles stopped using equalizers, was the added distortion. It just, you know, if you're an audiophile, you want the lowest amount of distortion in your music. According to Schiit Audio's specifications, the distortion rating on this, with the knobs all centered, is 0.002%. I mean, that's as low as it gets. And at any position, even with the gains at full, positive or minus, the distortion reaches no higher than 0.01%. So according to their specifications, this is going to add no audible distortion at all to your music. And my opinion listening to it is that is true. Even if I crank the bass up to 12 decibels of boost, as long as your amp doesn't go into the clipping range with that kind of power boost, I don't hear any distortion at all. That's something else that has to be taken into consideration, is for every 3 decibels of boost on your bass, you're going to double the power you're requiring from your amp. So say you're running 100 milliwatts of power into your headphones, and you boost the bass by 3 decibels, now you're requiring 200 milliwatts from your amp. Well, say you boost it 6 decibels, now you're up to 400 milliwatts. You boost at 9 decibels, now you're up to 800 milliwatts. You boost at 12, you're up to 1600 milliwatts, or 1.6 watts, which is out of the capabilities of any portable headphone amp I'm aware of, and a lot of desk amps can't handle that kind of power. So now what happens is you're pushing your amp into the clipping range, and the amp is what's distorting, not the EQ itself. The knobs for adjustment, the bottom one at 20 hertz and the top at 8000 hertz both have 12 decibels of plus or minus range, and the 2 middle knobs that are at 400 and 2000 hertz have 6 decibels of plus or minus. The signal to noise ratio on this, according to Schiit Audio's specifications, is better than 109 decibels. So that is not going to add any audible noise at all to your system. You're not going to get a hiss, and once again, from my experience, I don't hear any hiss at all. I don't hear any distortion added by this. I don't hear any background hiss. I don't hear anything. And like I said, I just make small tweaks with this. Maybe 2 to 3 decibels at most of boost in the bass, and maybe 2 to 3 decibels at most of boost in the treble, or sometimes I drop the mid-range a couple decibels and leave the bass and treble where they're at. The one nice thing about this that I really like is the bypass switch on it, which you can set your EQ to wherever you want, and you can instantly bypass it and compare back to flat, and know where you're at, because your ears will quickly adjust, and you, after a while, you really don't even notice it anyway. So the one thing that, well, is there anything I don't like about this? And the truth is, I really like it. I think it's well worth the $149 price. The only flaw I can see with it, and I don't know if you can see this in the picture, but I noticed that a couple of the knobs are slightly off center. I mean, just a hair off center. And they're not removable. They are glued on, and I've heard or read about a few other people pointing this issue out also. But other than that, I have no complaints at all about it. If you need a way to make small tweaks to adjust to either your headphone speakers, make them sound right, or just adjust it from album to album and put it the tone balance where you like it, this thing is a great deal. I really do recommend it. I think it's a great product. Thank you for watching my video. This is William from the Headphone Experience. Please join us at my Facebook headphone group, and if you like my video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.